Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So my name is Karla. I'm going to talk about the top 13 tips when traveling to Cuba. So my husband and I recently went to Cuba this last summer, July of 2019, and there was a lot of things that we learned, and I wanted to go ahead and create this video so that it can help you when you're traveling to Cuba, especially if it's your first time. So tip number 1, visas. You got your airfare to go to Cuba, you're going to Cuba, woohoo! Now, besides your US passport, you are gonna need a visa to enter Cuba. And if you are an American like we are, you need to go under the 12 categories in order to go in. So that can be visiting family, supporting the Cuban people, education, journalism, religious purposes, etc., etc. And so the category that my husband and I went into Cuba was to support the Cuban people. And this is a very broad category, which means you can support the Cuban people in any way, learning their cultures, watching their festivals, listening and learning about their music, the museums, and it goes on and on and on. So this is the category that I went in. We had no problem with it. Nobody really asked us anything, but just make sure to keep your receipts so that if you're asked or questioned, you have your proof of what you've done to support the Cuban people. Now going back to the visas. So we were able to obtain our visas at the airport while making our layover at Houston International Airport. It cost us $75 per person. Now, I know that there are other people that get their visas either ahead of time, or if they go to Mexico, for instance, they can get their visas at a very significant price, or significantly cheaper at $20 per person. But in our case, it was our first time getting a visa, so I didn't know how it was going to work. I really wanted to go the safe route, just get in at the airport. And it was a very simple process. It probably took about 5 minutes. They asked us for our US passports, they asked us for our name, date of birth, our citizenship, and that was it. The second tip number 2 that I wanted to talk about was the health insurance. So when you go into Cuba, the government requires you to have health insurance as a tourist. So typically this is included in your airfare, and you can see this in the breakdown of your purchase. So it costs $25, and it's a really good thing to have anyway, because if you do get sick, at least you have insurance and you're not going to get billed for something that you don't even know what the cost will be. So tip number 3, money, money, money. So if you are an American, unfortunately we get dinged 10% for exchanging our currency there. So what this means, we cannot use our ATM card or debit card. We cannot pull out money from an ATM machine. We cannot use our credit cards. We have to bring cash. Now, what that means is every time you go into Cuba and you want to exchange your money, they will charge you a 10% fee, so you're probably better off bringing either Mexican pesos, euros, pounds, or Canadian dollars, because they will charge us more just because it's US dollars. So for instance, when I went to the airport and I did the foreign currency, they charged me, probably for $100, they gave me about 87 CUCs. And just to give you a little bit of explanation or background of their currency, Cuba has 2 currencies. One is the CUCs, which is the convertible pesos for the tourists, and they have the CUPs, which is the local peso for the local Cubans. And think of it, $1 US is equivalent to 1 CUC, and 1 CUC is equivalent to 24 CUPs for them. So we won't have access to ATMs, we won't have access to anything else, but do know that you should have, the way that I see it is budget at least $50 to $100 per person per day. So I want to say that we spent, my husband and I, we went for about 1,000, we went for about 6 days, and we spent about $1,200. So we maybe spent about $600 per person, and that was including our tours and taxis and everything else. So that is really good. So tip number 4, There are several hotels in Cuba, especially in Havana, bigger cities like Havana and Varadero, but we stayed at a casa particular, which is also known as an Airbnb. We booked our Airbnb here in the States before we arrived to Cuba, and the prices are very inexpensive. They range about $20 to $30 per night. So it depends on what you're booking, but there are several casa particulares around Cuba in the Havana area. And I stayed in Chinatown area, which is not near the old Havana, which is where all the tourists typically stay at, but we stayed in the Chinatown area where all the locals are at. And it was really nice. We were walking at a walking distance from the Malecon, from Old Havana, and from a lot of major sites. And we paid about $18 or $19 per night for the 6 days. So it was pretty inexpensive, and we had AC, we had a full-on kitchen, a bathroom, 2 bedrooms. It was a private apartment. It was really nice. And so downstairs is where our host stayed, and upstairs is where we stayed. It was really convenient, really nice. And they also offered us breakfast at a daily rate of $3 per person. So typically that's what you'll get. You stay at a casa particular, and they will treat you like family. So a lot of times you get your personal apartment, or you can you stay at someone's house within like an extra bedroom that they have. So I just want to say, please refrain from feeling like awkward or bad, because they're offering you the best that they can. They're very limited in what they have, their resources. And so to make a little extra money, these people rent out their space, their rooms, and they treat you and they take you in like family. So just be mindful of that and be respectful. And moving on to tip number 5, toiletries. So be prepared to bring your toiletries, because a lot of the public restrooms don't have running water, don't have soap, don't have toilet paper, toilet seats, or toilet seat covers. So just make sure to bring your sanitizer, clean your hands with the sanitizer every time you go to a restaurant, every time you go to a restroom, anytime you touch anything, and bring wipes so that you can clean yourself, because you don't want to be dirty. And also bring your essentials when you're at a hotel, because you don't know what they may or may not have, like your shampoo, your conditioner, all the things that you would use at home. Bring travel size so that you can use it while you're there. Okay, so moving along to tip number 6. I'm going to talk about 3 major apps that I highly recommend when you're in Cuba. The first one is maps.me. The second one is Spanish Dict. And the third one is Google Translate. So for maps.me, this is an offline map that works in Cuba if and when you download the app beforehand. So download it at home before you arrive to Cuba and download the country. Do not forget to download the country, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to use it. So maps.me, download Cuba, and then it will direct you, so it can help you with routes or with planning for your locations and where you want to go if you want to walk around the town. The second one is Spanish Dict. If you don't know Spanish, then you should definitely download this app. It will help you with simple phrases that you would need every day while you're there. But make sure to as well download the language. So download the app, Spanish Dict and Spanish, so that you can be able to use it in Cuba, because their internet is very slow, and that's if you get it. The third app that I would recommend is Google Translate. So when someone's speaking to you, you can translate, or when you want to speak in English, they can translate it to you in Spanish, and you can show it to the person who you want to speak to. The 7th tip that I want to talk about is xoxo. That is the Wi-Fi, the telecommunication company in Cuba. So when I was in Havana, I tried to find xoxo, and I didn't find too many of them, but when I did, the lines were out the door. It was extremely long, probably had to wait about an hour, and when I went in, I was told that I needed to have my passport with me. I had a copy of my passport, but they told me that they needed to see the actual passport. So it was so inconvenient, but I just want to let you guys know, bring your passport and know that there are a little bit of restrictions. So with the these are the Wi-Fi cards. They come in cards like a calling card. You have to scratch it off, and they have a little, like a pin in the back, and you just put it into the session when you're trying to open the Wi-Fi. And these are, so the rule that I remember that they gave me was you can only buy up to 3 cards per day, and each card is worth 3 CUCs, which is about $3 US, and it's worth $1 hour per card. So, and then on top of that, you find a Dexa, you stand in line for an hour, you get your card, and then you have to find a Wi-Fi park to actually use it, or a Wi-Fi spot. And there aren't too many of them. There's typically parks where you have to go. And if you can't get it with them because they're closed or because of for whatever reason, just know that there are street vendors that will sell it to you for about $6 per card, and that can get very expensive. So moving along to tip number 8, let's talk about water. The tap water in Cuba is not safe. Don't drink it. I went on a tour with some guys that were from Georgia, and he was totally sick, vomiting and everything, but he wanted to go on this tour. And I asked him, what did you get sick of? He said he didn't know, but the last thing that he had was water, tap water. He had drank 2 nights prior, and he was totally fine, hungover but fine, but then he drank water from the tap, and it was downhill from there. So don't do it. And there are going to be some times where the convenience stores or the liquor stores run out of water, like it did in my case. So what I would suggest is grabbing the tap water, boiling it, and then letting it cool off overnight, putting it in the fridge so that you can have some water. But that would be your last resort. I wouldn't even do that if you don't have to. So if you find water in one of the little liquor stores or in one of the convenience stores, buy several of them so that you can go ahead and stock up and keep it for a rainy day. And that also goes for ice. It applies for ice. Don't let them put ice in your cup for soda or whatever, because if it's unfiltered, it's the same thing. All right, so tip number 9, taxis. Taxis are extremely expensive in Cuba because a lot of them, that's where they make their money. There's a lot of tourists, they live off of taxis, off of charging everyone for taxis. So my number 1 rule or tip would be negotiate. They're always going to try to charge you more because they know that you come with money and you're coming to spend. So if they say, oh, a ride from here to, I don't know, 5 minutes away, $20, 20 CUCs, no, I'll give you 10. And most likely they will negotiate with you. They will go down because they want to make some money. So, and I just also want to state here that I think in the so my husband and I said this earlier, we spent about $1,200 for both of us for the 6 days that we were there. And we ended up probably spending about $200 to $250 worth of taxis. And we did a whole lot of walking in Havana. So just consider that if you are going to do taxis, they are pretty expensive. And the American Classic cars too, they charge typically $50 an hour, and I was able to negotiate it down to $35 an hour, and I got the car that I wanted. So don't settle just because the guys are coming up to you like, oh, get this car, I have it on sale. Get the one that you want and negotiate with him. Like, oh, I like this car. Then the driver's gonna come up to you and then you try to negotiate. And they usually take you for an hour ride around Havana and explain everything for you, which is really nice. And you get to take pictures in the car, obviously. It's a really, I mean, you can't go to Cuba and not get on the American Classic cars at least once, so do it. Tip number 10, souvenirs. This is a very important question. A lot of people ask, how many boxes of cigars can I bring back, or how many bottles of rum can I bring back? So we were told that you can bring 2 boxes per person of cigars, and you can bring 4 bottles of rum or alcohol back. When we entered the US, nobody asked us anything. No one interrogated us. No one said boo. So we brought about 4 or 6 bottles back, and we brought 2 boxes of Cuban cigars. Each had 25 cigars in them, which is another tip. Please do not buy from the street vendors because they probably are not legit. So be very mindful and get your cigars and your souvenirs from local places, the flea markets, from the souvenir shops, or from like the organic farms where they do this tobaccos. All right, tip number 11, bring candies and snacks. So I went shopping. I did my souvenir shopping in the San Jose flea market, and they were asking me, where are you coming from? Oh, I'm coming from California. Oh, did you bring candy or chocolates? And I was like, what? Why are they asking me these things? So I didn't realize that Cuba doesn't really have candies. They don't really have candies. They don't really have snacks or chips or things like that. So when we come from the US, not that they expect us, but I guess they assume that we bring snacks, and they always want some. And for them, it's like if you give them a bag of M&Ms, oh my gosh, it's heaven for them because they don't have that over there. So when I go back, if I go back, I am going to go to Walmart and stock up on a lot of chocolates and candies and chips and just give them to all the kids because that would make them so happy. And luckily I did have a bag or 2 from the airport just to munch on while I was in the airplane, and it was closed. I hadn't opened it, so I gave it to them, and they were really, really, really happy. So tip number 12, Cuba is hot. Ladies, dress accordingly. I know that we all want to get all dolled up. We want to wear our heels. We want to be in our fancy little whatever. Don't do it. You're going to want to strip down and be in your panties if that's what you can do. And also be mindful. A lot of the people there, they can't dress up, so you will really stand out if you're in heels and your hair's all dolled up and your purses and your this. And the streets are not the cleanest, so your shoes will get dirty. So I would just say dress down in shorts and your t-shirt. Yes, it's nice for you to dress up, but you don't have to. It's going to be hot. I have to take showers at least 2 or 3 times a day because it was extremely hot and humid. It was terrible, the heat. Our last and final tip, 13. Cuba is extremely safe. I have traveled to so many places. I've been to El Salvador, I've been to Central America, I've been to Europe, I've been to Mexico, and Cuba is safe. It's the safest country I have been to personally, and I read everywhere that it is safe. There is no other country that is as safe as Cuba. So don't worry about going to the beach and leaving your wallet behind. Of course, if it's visible and it's easy access for someone to take, they probably will. But Cubans are very tight like that. They're very respectful, and as a tourist, they have you, they will cater to you. So they're not going to do you dirty because they want your business. So just know that Cuba is extremely safe. I was out all hours of the night and the day, and not once did anyone look at me weird. Did I feel uncomfortable? Did anyone take anything from me? None at all. So don't worry about it. Totally safe. So just have fun. Enjoy your trip to Cuba. You are going to love it. It's just absolutely amazing. So I wish you guys best time ever. Safe travels. Until next time. Thank you.